Well, here I am at my drawing board in my little office in the corner of the building here, and we're drawing a profile to ORCA. So it pretty much starts right here on any build. You know, any architect would probably draw the profile first. That's what I've done here. But these boats, these Novi lobster boats, and that's what it was originally, was a Nova Scotian built lobster boat. And you know, we're going to try to duplicate that as close as entirely possible. You know, I don't think that anyone would be able to dispute that this is ORCA by looking at it when we're done, or in any other way, actually. So Halsey's over at the layout table, and he's investigating all kinds of different things. He went through the entire movie and took screenshots of everything that we might be interested in. You know, from the lines, you know, the shapes. We studied the shear of the boat and the shape of the boat, you know, to get the size of the house and all the things that we need to get. What angle is the stem on, the transom, you know, the flare amidships, you know, the tumble home, all these different things you can study. You have to scale each drawing all by itself because you can't take a scale from one drawing and put it on the other. We use Richard Dreyfuss's height really to scale some of the boat. Everybody in Nova Scotia built a little different shape. So we don't know who built this boat originally, but I know where it came from. There's a lot of ways to get involved, and we've put up a list on the website, tipsfromashipwright.com, of all the items that we could possibly think of on ORCA. Everything from soup to nuts. The yellow barrels, which at one time were black barrels, quince harpoon gun, shark cage, fighting chair, you know, the trailer winch they had on the mast there, the spotlight for the fly bridge, all the hardware, some of it's from other boats, all these different things. We even want the same machete that he used. We've been looking at the letters on the transom and, you know, all the fishing gear, bow pulpit, and all these different things. We're trying to find them, and if not, we have to make them. So if everybody was to look around for this stuff and could, you know, donate some of it, it would be great, or tell us where to find it. It's a useful thing. We got a lot of items on there, so go ahead and look through them and try to help us out. When I first looked at ORCA and pictures of ORCA, I knew it was a Nova Scotian built lobster boat. And it's got a real gentle shear that doesn't turn up aft, so that's no modern boat. That's an old boat right there. ORCA was converted from Warlock right here, and that's what you're looking at. That was Warlock when it was converted to a sedan cruiser, you know. And what I've done is I've used it, you know, for reference, like the angle of the stem and the angle of the transom. You know, this is a pretty good one for the angle of the stem. And so I've recorded that and put that onto my drawing. You know, in the shear line, the look of the shear line, this is probably the best picture that we've got that shows the shear line. The shear of this lobster boat is pretty interesting because it has a very low shear up forward with no rise to it, or very little. And it actually has a rising shear, I would call it, because right about here in the shear, maybe 10 feet forward or 8 feet forward, it's a little bit taller than it is at the transom. So, you know, it just rises up from the transom all the way, and it's kind of questionable as to whether or not it's got a little bit of a dip up here, you know, just in the direction of the shear itself. So, you know, we've tried to duplicate that. With ORCA, they added a bulwark to this one right here, and it goes up. It's just about the same height as the trunk cabin. You know, you can still walk around behind it, so it's not a raised deck. And the other thing that's quite a bit different is you see a fly bridge on this boat right here, but ORCA's got a fly bridge, but it's much bigger than this. It's taller, it's a little bit wider, a little bit longer, and it's a little bit different shape. So, you know, and then the windows on ORCA were cut down and made into much bigger windows. You know, the same sides to the house and up here. And of course, ORCA's got round ports, where this one's got rectangular ports. So, you know, a few things like that. Well, let me show you the centerline drawing right here. We've got the keel with the worm shoe underneath it, and the forefoot, and the stem. And actually on this drawing is the way that the stem is going to be connected to the forefoot with a gripe. That's kind of a standard thing. This connection right here is quite a bit different, really. This is the keel right here, and this is the worm shoe right here. It's like a 2x under the keel that's kind of sacrificial. This is the joint between the forefoot and the keel. And, you know, it's just a sloped angle with a little tiny butt on this end, and it appears a touch short, but it's got this big piece, you don't see it, I didn't blacken it in yet, but on top of it, so it all bolts together. So really, it's much longer scarf joint than you would have back here between the keel and the after part of the keel. And that was kind of the way I wanted it done. It could have had a gripe showing below the rabbit line like that one, but this is even better. And it's going to have one stop water in it. One. Up here you got two, where the water line, where the rabbit line crosses the back of the timber. Right there you have to put a stop water right here, and you have to put another stop water right here. So all that is a hole drilled across with like a dowel pounded in there, a compressed dowel. So, we started with the very forward end. This is the stem. It's on like a 2-degree angle forward, and it's nice and straight. This is the knuckle right here at the water line, and it appears above the load water line, the way ORCA was. And it's curved. It has a slanted forefoot, the way all Nova Scotian boats are. And, I would love to know the exact purpose of that, but I think it has something to do with beaching the boats. A lot of times they drill a hole in it right up here, quite a large hole. And I believe what they would do with that is put a chain in it, and a bulldozer, and pull it up the beach a little bit, so that they could work on it and different stuff like that. So that may be what that's about. But, I started up forward. This is the part I'm starting to build right here. Back aft, we got our stern post and horn timber, just kind of the profile of it drawn in. And I wanted to show you that a lot of this drawing I did on this page right here, and then once I get something the way I want it, I can erase it a number of times or do anything I want. First, I'm going to take and put the pencil on that little cross right there. So I've got it on this page. All I have to do is take a peek over there and look at that. There it is right there, because I've made the grid and everything match the two pages. So any kind of measurement, any kind of angle, or anything that I can sketch up in this drawing, when I'm satisfied with it, I can transfer it over to this one. So that's kind of the approach I'm doing, because I want to keep this drawing nice and clean if I can, and I don't want to erase it because it tears up the paper, and, I can't even touch it really or very often. So you get lead on your fingers and everything else. So this is the way I'm doing it. I don't think anybody else has done it this way. I kind of doubt it, but, I'm kind of up against things all the time, and one of them is to be inventive about all of this and how it happens, because I haven't had formal training. So, I can make it happen, that's for sure. Then after that, I'm going to develop all the sections. There's going to be 3 drawings, this one being the profile. Then there's a drawing looking at it from the top, that shows you the water lines that are straight in this view. They'll be curved in the next view. And then you have what they call the body plan, which shows you all the frames and everything. So it's a 3-dimensional drawing. 2 dimensions from this go into the other ones. 1 dimension goes in that one, the other one goes in that one, and the way it works out, you can find a spot in the middle of nowhere by the 3 dimensions. All of these boats, as far as I can tell, were ballasted in some way, either stern end or forward, because when they carved them from models, they didn't have all the information about weight displacement and all these different things. They just carve a model that was something similar to the last one, but something different as well. Maybe they change the angle of this or that, put a little bit more displacement or something, but I'm just basically copying ORCA. I don't have to get involved with all of that. And then when I put it in the water, yes, might need a little bit of ballast on one end or the other, but that's the way it's done. The next thing I'm going to do is to cut the forward scarf on the keel itself. That means I have to roll the keel on its side, both sides, cut one part of it from one side and one part from the other side. It's 6 inches thick. I can cut 3 or so, 3¼ inches deep on each side to make that cut. I've shown you how that's done before. It's got a little nib in it right here, so I can't cut by. So that makes it a little bit more complicated, but it's really no big deal. And then, like I say, I'll tune that all up with a plane. Then I'm going to end up with this piece underneath it to make a tracement. So I don't have to transfer any measurements or do anything like that. It's a simple tracement, and the next thing I want to do or tell you is that I know the angle between this line and this line. Now that line is a straight line, and the forefoot is not. Well, that's straight. The forefoot kind of comes in on an angle, so I want to make sure that I have this one right and that one right. So it's a matter of just checking it on the floor, really. And like I say, it does have a slight curve in the forefoot, and they all do. And then we're going to move up here and do this. We'll have to cut these curves in it, make a little joint right there, put a gripe inside of it. The gripe hangs out past the rabbit line. You know, you guys will get to see that. The difference between this and a main boat is, well, the main boat would have a little bit more angle on the stem, might even have a little curve to the top or all kinds of different things, but you'd never see this knuckle above the load water line. It would come around here and curve and come all the way down to the keel like that. So it's not like that. The main boat would have a graceful curve in there. This is quite a sharp curve in this one right here. I wanted to show you here the grid that I'm drawing this over. These are the water lines. This is the load water line. It's not necessarily the floating water line. That could be a few inches above that, but this is the one we're designing it on. Now, these are 1 foot increments as you go up on different water lines, and then you have the buttock lines, which are actually these vertical lines in the other drawing, or these horizontal lines in the other drawing. So, you know, you've got horizontal lines in here, and you've got vertical lines in here. You know, all of these. This load water line was planned around looking at this knuckle. On the other end, it was planned around the depth that the boat had right at the transom. So when you're drawing it, you kind of have to balance these the height you want. Otherwise, the boat won't look like that in the water. Let me show you the drawings back aft here. This is the keel coming in right here. It extends all the way back to almost the rudder post. You know, this is the steel underneath it that you have to remove to get the rudder post out. This is the stern post right here, a 6x. And it's mortised in to the keel, and it's mortised in to the horn timber. The horn timber is kind of like maybe 5 inches thick, and this is the bottom line of it right here. It's on a little tiny drag, not very much of one, but you know, most all of them are level right here, and a lot of them you can just see in the water. They got just the trim underwater right here, so very, very close to the water line, the stern end of the boat. And you know, then I'll have to drill it right through here. You know, like I say, this is built all different than a main hull too, because a main hull would have like a curved rabbit line coming down like that, and all of this section right here is built different. It's all stacked. It would have a piece of dead wood up here, then would have the shaft log split in half. That's the way they build that, and that would extend up into here. You know, no stern post at all. You know, and then, like I say, the shaft logs under that, then they'll have another piece of dead wood under that, right? So it's what we call a stacked keel. That's what I call it. And this one is not that way at all. It's what I call a drag keel, right? And a stern post, Novi style. I just remember this. I started studying these shapes when I was a young kid, because I'd look between or under the floorboards on a boat, and you know, then I'd look under the main boat floorboards, and everything was so different. It's like, it just made me inquisitive about how did this happen? You know, how did they make this happen? You know, and there was a number of things that used to surprise me in the construction. This is going to be the ultimate in enjoyment for me, because the boat's got a reputation, the original one. You know, it's something different than people are building today. You don't see much construction just like this, or boats being built the shape or having any real resemblance to this. You know, I think the Americans have really tried to stay away from the appearance of a Novi lobster boat, just maybe for the sake of being American. I don't know, but you know, we're going to make this one ORCA.